Hey there, so you know what, we've been looking at Sundial stock quite a lot recently and you guys do seem to like the videos, so you know what we're doing tonight? We're looking at, is Sundial stock that good of a buy? So yes, it could possibly be a good buy as it is actually a very cheap stock right now, but obviously when we're putting this up against the competitors, as they are all going through the same catalyst right now, we really do have to ask ourselves, is now a good time to buy this stock or should we be looking at other stocks in the same industry? Because I think when other people do see stocks at this low of a price and also stocks at a higher price, I think that the cheaper stock is automatically the better option because it means more growth. That is not necessarily the case. You know, all these stocks can sustain good growth in the future, so price does not necessarily mean too much indeed. But yeah, before we do start, I think it's important to say whether you like Sundial stock, whether you don't like Sundial stock, I am indifferent to this one. If it's good news, I'm going to tell you if it's good news. If it's bad news, I'm going to tell you if it's bad news. So please do not leave a dislike because I'm saying something that you might not like. I'm just telling you the way that I see it. On top of that, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like and subscribing instead, I would massively appreciate it. Can we get to 2,000 subscribers by tomorrow? Like I said, it's a very ambitious goal, but I believe we can do it. So yeah, we're going to be looking at two other companies in the same industry. We're going to be looking at Aurora and we're also going to be looking at Canopy Growth. So all of these stocks are actually in a similar sector of the market. So we're going to be looking at how each one of these stocks have been reacting recently. So we're going to cross off this tab and now we have them all a bit closer together. So we're obviously going to start off by looking at the Sundial stock. So if we look at Sundial stock, we are actually down from Friday, only a very small amount. And obviously the main catalyst for this month was the fact that, these companies could potentially have growth in the future as the use of cannabis is apparently going to be either legalized or decriminalized. Now, I'm not 100% sure when this bill is going to get passed. I think it's going to be early next year or even late December, so it's not really too quick that it's going to happen. But regardless, people were flooding all of these stocks because this is a big catalyst for the companies. Obviously, selling what they sell, it would help them a lot if this was legal, and of course it would mean that they could access a lot more customers. So yeah, looking at this on the 1 month, we can really see what day this came out, what impact this had on the company. Looking at Sundial, so we saw Sundial go up about 170% really, perhaps even higher than that if we're looking from the low. So we saw it go up, lows in a very short amount of time in the later part of the month. And I think this is a good thing, but subsequently we did see the share price sell off a little bit. This took us down from our highs of 81 cents and took us down to lows, or at least a new point of 0.66, obviously 66 cents. So we lost a little bit there, but obviously that's just kind of like a sell-off which you would see after a big pump like this. So it's not really too bad of a thing. We'll just have to see where this one does take us on Monday. Obviously this is going to be more of a volatile stock because the stock price is worth less, so it's probably going to be more likely to bounce up and down the place. But yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So key points to take away from the growth in this month. Obviously it's all about that bill being passed, and I think all of the other stocks in the same industry will have had a similar impact. So looking at Aurora does appear to be a bit more stable, but it looks to have had some kind of an influence from that as well. So looking at Aurora over the past month, we could actually get to 6 month on this one, but to make it fair for all of the companies, we'll look at them on the 1 month. So comparing Aurora down to Sundial, we can see that Sundial saw a bigger growth in a shorter period, but looking at Aurora, I'm getting a bit confused. We're looking at a 56% growth in the same period, so it's still not a bad return for under a month, and I'm glad that we are seeing this, and I think it will be due to the same catalyst. But this one, like I said, is worth slightly more in a stock value, so obviously it is kind of a bit more stable. I think that's another thing with this one. I think when people were jumping on Sundial, they were going as that one for their option because they saw, like I said, a low stock price, potentially more profit, and you know how it is, but that's not always the case, but it could still be the case potentially, so please don't get my words incorrect. Looking at this on the 5-day chart though, we can see that this one's really not been moving too much. I mean, it's slightly in the red, but looking at it from the start of the month, we started off the week on 14.47. We finished off the week on 13.89, so we lost 4% over the week, but it has been quite volatile over that period. So you can see that on the 5-day chart we saw big dips from this high point here of about 15.69 all the way down to about $13, maybe even 12.62, and obviously then we saw a bit of recovery towards the end of last week. On the Friday we did see a bit of a sell-off, but not really too steep, but not good to see towards the end of the week. So yeah, looking like I said at the last day, Friday is still red for this company. So we started off the week on Friday on 14.65. We ended up that same Friday on about $14, if not 13.89. So of course, only a small decrease, but still a decrease nonetheless. Now let's move on to the bigger player, especially when we look at this from a price point. We can see that the stock price of Canopy Growth is at $36.46. And this one is kind of following the same pattern as Aurora, where, Sundial was a bit more volatile. We're looking at this one to be a bit more flat, similar to, Aurora. So like I said, not necessarily a bad thing, being as we are still looking at big growth. Looking at the lows from this week, we are looking at about 16% increase on the 1 month chart. So not bad at all to see for the stock in the month, but obviously it's a bit less growth than the other companies. I think this is kind of safe to say, especially when we look at the market caps, we can kind of understand why. The market cap of this company is 13.57 billion. On Aurora, the market cap is at 2.55 billion. And looking down to Sundial, we can see that the market cap is only at 291 million. So obviously it's a big number still, but looking at this from a company's perspective, it's a lot smaller than the other two. And I think that's why it's a lot more volatile. And like I said, the fact that the price is a lot cheaper, I think a lot more people were willing to go in with this one at a cheaper price. But that's not necessarily a bad thing like we're about to talk about. So yeah, just looking back at this stock for a minute, which is obviously Canopy, we are seeing similar patterns where we saw this big sell-off in the early part of the week, on the Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on the Wednesday, we saw a recovery actually. This brought us back to a similar point where we're at the start of the week, which took us to a small loss again. This was a 2.6% loss again, so obviously a small loss, but still a bit more stable than the other two companies, and I think this is due to the fact that the market cap is larger, the company is a bit more established. Not necessarily a bad thing that we saw a bigger drop in the other companies, but I think we got to understand why. And I think the fact that the stock price is a bit higher on this one just makes it more stable of a company, because the company has a larger market cap, it's more established. You guys know how it is. Anyway, on the one day, we are seeing similar patterns to the other two kind of, especially with Aurora, where we are seeing a very small dip, but a dip nonetheless. This took us down about 2.54% on the day, on the Friday. So obviously, in my opinion, looking at these stocks, all three of them are probably going to see a bit, or at least hopefully a bounce back into next week. I'm going to be talking more about Sundial's hopeful bounce back in tomorrow's episode, where we're going to do our look towards the next week. But I can see this one and all of the others actually taking a big bounce back. Now, my personal opinion, and I could be wrong with this one, but I can see Sundial taking the biggest bounce back. Now, the reasoning for this is obviously because people are going to be getting him at that cheaper price, thinking that Sundial is going to take off. It is not impossible that Sundial couldn't take off. Please don't get my words incorrect, but people will be going in for that. So my opinions are for these stocks. Sundial and all of the others, really, they are going to be decent stocks for the future, but I think a lot of the hype is kind of riding on the fact that people are expecting that bill to get passed, and we're not 100% sure when that bill is going to get passed, if it even does. Obviously, if it doesn't, the stock price is probably going to go down a bit for all three companies. But yeah, looking at these, they're all kind of speculative plays because you are really going on that main catalyst. Obviously, we are seeing growth in the next few years, but it's going to be a lot slower than what it would be if this product was legalized or at least decriminalized. So my perspective is, Sundial is probably going to be the biggest grower on a percentage basis, but I am not a financial advisor. I just think that that's just because of, the case that the stock is a lot more volatile, and people, generally speaking, have a lot more hope in these companies. They're allowing to play, larger speculative bets on smaller companies, expecting them to do well. That is sometimes the case, and I do hope that is going to be the case with this company. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.